Samantha from Jessimo Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create my Frangipani flower cane necklace. So this is the necklace that we are going to be making. You can see that we have these canes that we need to make, these two. So this is the exact one that we're going to make. So let's start making the cane. So what you're going to need to make the cane is some Kato yellow polyclay and Kato white polyclay, and you want to create a skinner blend between the two. Now I like to use about half a block of Kato for each colour, and then create a skinner blend from those. So you'll just cut half of the white, cut half of the yellow, form those into triangles like you would any other skinner blend, and just create a normal two colour skinner blend. Now if you don't know how to create a two colour skinner blend, I already have a tutorial on how to create a two colour skinner blend, so I'll provide a link in the links below just to prevent this tutorial from running too long. So just create a skinner blend between these two colours, and then we can move on to the next step. Okay, so here it is now that I've finished up the skinner blend. So you can see that we have a nice consistent blend. And I just want to explain how much I used of each colour. I used half a block of Kato yellow and 3/4 of a block of Kato white, in case you were wondering. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to bring over our tissue blade, and we just want to cut off a segment over here, and I'll show you what this is for later. Now what we want to do is we want to take this and we want to fold it in half, keeping the right colours in the right areas, of course. And actually, before we do that, this was rolled out on the thickest setting. I'm now going to take it down to my middle setting, and I'm lengthening it. Then I'm going to take it down to my second thinnest setting, and again I am lengthening the blend. There we go. So we end up with a blend like that. Now we're going to start folding it in half. So we'll grab that, fold that in half, and don't worry, try to keep the colours on colour, if you know what I mean, and squish out air bubbles. I'm just trying to get those air bubbles all into one spot so I can get rid of them. And don't worry about smushing the colours together, because we're going to try and get the veins that you would naturally get in a flower. So by smushing the colours together so that you kind of have a little bit of overlap, you will get some veins. So then let me just squish that together again and pick it up, fold it in half again and smush flat, and then we'll fold in half again, just like that, just squishing these sides. And you want to squish in this top part as well, and the bottom part, and we're going to add some more white later on, so in all we'll probably use up an entire block of Kato white. Don't think we'll need more yellow, we'll see. Okay, and then I'm going to fold it in half one last time. Okay, just like that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to bring over our roller, and now by doing this, instead of creating a traditional skinner blend plug, is we're going to be creating unevenness in the block. So if I were to cut it in half for you, which I'll do in a minute, you'll see that we actually have created veins. So I'm just going to roll this down a little bit more so that I can cut it in half again. Don't worry about air bubbles, we'll get rid of those in a little while. There we are. Roll it flat. You don't want pieces like that. And just snip an area if you see an air bubble. And then we're going to cut that in half. And hopefully you can see that we have some veins and things in there. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to purposefully place it in such a way that we are going to be stacking it with the white going a little bit further down, as you can see. And then we're going to, I'm just trying to keep the tile clean. Then we're going to squish up those ends to shorten this up so that we can cut it in half again, because we want lots of tiny fine lines, kind of like you would get in an ikat cane, but we don't want it to be as strong as it is in an ikat cane. So now I'm going to roll that out so that I can roll it through on the thickest setting of my pasta machine. Oops, sorry. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it through a pasta machine from this end on the thickest setting. Here we are. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it into sections, and you don't even have to get these sections accurate, the right length. You just want to cut out sections and then kind of step ladder them. So I hope you can see what I mean there. And this will create some streaks, which is exactly what you want in this. Okay, so I will lift that up. Can't actually see it now. So you want to squish in these ends again. And this part's important because you want it to be completely and utterly random, really. Because the flower, although it does have an element of geometry to it, you do want to keep some areas random, otherwise it doesn't look natural and the flower itself will look fake. So you don't want the petals to all be the exact same size, you want them all to be roughly the same size, but you don't want to spend ages getting them the exact same shape, because naturally a flower's petals won't be all the exact same shape. So I'm just going to flatten this out so I can stack it one last time, and then we can move on to creating the actual cane pot. There we are. Now cut that in half. Hopefully you can see that there's some slight streaking. You only want very slight streaks. Okay, and we'll squish that up into a cane, and then I'm going to bring over that other piece that I showed you earlier. And what we want to do is we want to bring, hold on, I want to lengthen this out, so I'm just going to squish this up a bit more. Okay, and then we want the white part over here, so we have a really light vein going up here. There we go. And just trim off that part. So now we have a really light vein coming up here. Okay, so I've trimmed it to size. Now I'm just going to lengthen it out because I want this to be on the middle setting of my pasta machine. And then we'll trim away the excess. and that part's quite important. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to actually reduce this down into a square shape, or a rough square at least. And if you're wondering what that noise is in the background, it's rain. And so we'll bring over our roller and we'll just start condensing it into a square. And I don't want too much distortion, so I'm just going to squish that down. Okay, so I'll just gradually start reducing it like I am until I have enough to cut out 5 petals. Okay, so I've reduced it down and cut off the waste ends, and so now what we want to do is we want to start shaping it. But just before you start shaping it, make sure to check your block to try and get it as even as possible. You want your petals all to be around about the same size. Okay, so this part, the yellow part, needs to have a point. So that's the part that I do first. So I squish down on each side, so I blunt up these sides and basically just pinch it downwards to make it rounded. And then once I've done that, I go back up and pinch it upwards to get this pointed shape. Okay, and just make sure that that pointed shape is nice and sharp. There we go. And then just go along with your fingers and smooth. So you get rid of a lot of the fingerprints. And then just pinch upwards so that you almost form a triangle out of your cane for the moment. You really want this part of your cane to be quite sharp. So just make sure that your points over here are sharp enough. Okay. Then I'll lift that up so you can see here that it's quite sharp. Okay, then you'll go around the sides and just gently turn it into a nice even triangle, like that. And then what you want to do is you want to lay it on its side and blunt up this corner over here. So it's this side over here that you want to blunt up, and you'll do the same on the other side because you want to start rounding this edge off. So we'll flip, and then we'll blunt up this side as well. And I'm just basically pushing down the corner to do that. So you can see we've rounded it out quite a bit. Okay, so now we've got the basic shape. So then smooth out your fingerprints, or finger dents really. You don't have to worry about fingerprints, just dents. Okay, and then just check your shape. And then we're going to start cutting it into pieces. So I'll just cut those into pieces. And then just trim off these end pieces over here. And we didn't actually end up needing any more white. Okay, so now you can see on this side that we have just a slight line over here. You want to put that on that side of the petal. You don't want the two lines touching when you assemble. Just want to point that out quickly because it's something that you can very easily miss. Okay, and so now I'm just going and I'm pinching the top of these to make sure that they're nice and rounded. You want them all the same size. Okay, and then we will start assembling. Okay. And I like sticking them to my tile. I don't want to stick them together at the moment because we need to pack it with translucent still. And because we have 5 petals, they're not all going to be sitting nice and pretty next to each other. So I'm just assembling it into the basic shape. There we go. And now just pinch the edges over here, and now we want to fill that with translucent. So I'm going to be using a log of this Premo translucent, and we want to pinch it into the shape so that it can fit between these leaves or petals. So I'll just move that off to the side, and we want to start pinching the top here. Let me just pop this somewhere where you can see it so that you can see what I'm going for. So I want to fill this section over here. So I'm going to try and match that triangle. Now this is a bit of a guessing game. And so you have to kind of practice at it. Okay, so the point needs to be really sharp because you want to fill in the shape as accurately as possible because then you get less distortion. Okay. So we've got a nice sharp shape, and I can check if it fits or not. So there's no real rules here, it's just basically whatever your shape is, you want to fit it. Okay, then I want to curl over these ends because I want them to wrap over this petal. So they need to be kind of rounded. Okay, I'll roll that. And I just want it to be the right shape. So I need to roll this over quite a bit more. And this side too. So it's going to take a bit of fiddling, so sorry if this part of the video is a bit slow, but that's basically what it takes. You have to go slowly, slowly, slowly. Make sure that you do it right until you're happy that it fits. So I think I've got that pretty close. I'm just going to chop off these ends and get it to the right length. It should be about the right length. Check in. That side it fits pretty well. About this side. That side fits pretty well as well. Okay, so you just pop that in like that. And then you'd go and do the exact same for all these other petals, and then I'll show you what to do next. Okay, so here is what it looks like, and you can see that I filled in each side, and we've got a nice overhang of translucent, and so now we basically want to start condensing it down, trying to round it out. And just do this with your fingers at first. Try to bring the translucent over to meet the other piece of translucent on the other side. And what this is going to do is going to first off cover your piece with translucent hopefully, and it's also going to give those petals a tiny bit of a point, which is what you want as well, because as you're bringing that translucent around, you're squishing the clay to give it a point. So you can see it, we're almost done, almost got all of that translucent in and around. And if you do have some areas, which you might, that don't have the translucent meet up, I'll show you how to fix that in just a second. So I'll fix that now actually. I'll bring over another piece of translucent, We'll just roll that in my hands. Squish that together. Because we want to create a log. To fit there. And then we're just going to gently pat that down. Trim up. And then stretch that over the problem area and squish it down. Okay, and then we'll continue pressing the translucent in until it meets, and then just smooth it over so that it stays together. I'm using Premo translucent because its translucent is much better than the Kato translucent. It's much clearer. Okay, there we go. That's pretty good. Okay, now you want to gently start rolling and squishing on both ends so that it almost forms a candy cane. That. So wrapped sweet, I guess. Okay, and then start rolling in the middle. And just squeeze with your hands. And now this clay is quite stiff because Premo is... Oh, never mind. Because the Premo is naturally more soft than the Kato, I conditioned it only a little bit so that it stays the same consistency as the Kato. So it's going to move quite slowly, and you want it to move slowly, otherwise you'll get cracks in it. Like there's a little crack over there. We'll just squish that in. And you can squish it with your fingers as well. This is a nice way to reduce it as well. And roll and so on until you've reduced it down. But I do want to cut off these ends to have a look. So you can see there that we have a pretty good point on each end. We have a little bit of a dud over there. So I'm going to do, I'm just going to see if I can, actually that kind of makes it look more natural, I guess, because you're not going to get perfect petals on all of the Frangipanis. But you can see why it's quite important to try and get your translucent to meet up, because you get this really nice point. And I'm not sure if the camera can pick this up, but the petals do have little streaks in them. Okay, so there, I'm just going to reduce that down into the sizes that we need, and then we can move on to creating the other canes that we're going to need for this project. Okay, so I have reduced the Frangipani petal or canes down, and so here you can see what they look like in the different sizes, and you can see that I've cut off some pieces so that I can see what they look like, but you can see that I've reduced it down to quite small size. So these are now ready to set aside for the moment. And now we are going to make our first translucent cane. So I've already done the first part because we're going to be making 2 of these, and what we want is we want to have white 3 layers of translucent that were on the thickest setting of the pasta machine, black that was on the thickest setting of the pasta machine, then another layer of translucent on the thickest setting, then another layer of white on the thickest setting, and then another layer of translucent on the thickest setting. So that's the first cane. Then in the second cane, we're basically just going to reverse it. So we're going to take a piece of translucent that was rolled out that has 3 layers of translucent on the thickest setting of my pasta machine, a log of black, and we're just gently going to wrap that around. Okay, and I just make a mark there where I can cut. And then we'll just squish that into place. This translucent Premo is a little bit old, so it's cracking a little. There we are. So that's the first part. Then we want to take a sheet of white that was rolled out in the thickest setting. And we want to wrap that around. And then you only want one layer, so I just cut that out there so I know where to join. Yeah. Then we want another layer of translucent. And I'm working with all Premo here, in case you're wondering. Okay, then mark that edge, pull it away, and press it all together. And just roll to make sure it's all nice together. Then we'll take a sheet of black, and again that was rolled out on the thickest setting of the pasta machine. And we'll wrap that around. There we go. And then we want one more layer of translucent. So it does make a large cane, but I think the cane looks really nice, and so I like working with large amounts. You can always decrease the amounts if you wanted to, just make your layers that you're wrapping around thinner. So now you can see we have an opposite of this one that we just did. So now what you want to do is you want to just gently start reducing it down. And we want to reduce it until it has a diameter of about 2 centimeters to 1.5 centimeters, and then we can start assembling our cane. So you want to reduce both of these canes down. And you'll just do it like you did the Frangipani cane. Turn it into kind of a sweet shape, or wrapped sweet shape, and then roll from the middle. And I'll do that, and then I can show you how to assemble the cane. Okay, so I have reduced these down, and so I had to cut them in half so that I could reduce them on the tile. So what we'll do now is I'll just put these aside for the moment, and we'll start cutting these into lengths. So first what we want to do is we want to pop them next to each other, like that. And then just chop off these ends so that they are nice and equal. And then I want to cut out equal segments. All the way along. And I'll do that with the other ones that I have as well. And once I've done that, I'll show you what to do with them. Okay, so now that we've cut them out, we want to arrange them into a cube cane by alternating these. So you're going to go white, black, and then you're going to start stacking on top. And you're going to go black, white, black, white. So that you form a checkerboard, sort of a checkerboard cane, but it's not square and it's kind of completely different, but it's got the same principle behind it. So you'll just stack different colours on top of each other, so that now you have formed a cube shape. So now what I'll do is I'll add another stack. So that we keep our cube shape. It has to stay in this cube in a square so that it reduces nicely. And so I'll carry on stacking that until I can't fit anymore. There we go. So now I've got a nice big square cane, which I am now going to gently press into that square shape. And I'll flip every now and then to help reduce it. And I'm just pressing on it with my palms. And the point is to not so much reduce it, more as to squish these pieces all together so that they're all stuck together and in their right shapes. Now as you can see, we have some left, and we'll do something with that in just a little while. Okay, and so I'm pressing it now and it's all together, so we can now bring over our acrylic rod and we can actually start reducing. Just like you would any normal square cane. And this is going to look quite nice. I don't want to reduce it too much. I might reduce it down till it is about 3 centimeters by 3 centimeters square. I'm not sure, we'll see. I kind of eyeball these things. There's nothing really official about it. Depending on how much clay you started with, that's going to dictate what size you're going to reduce it to. So there's really no official measurements. And also, this isn't supposed to look exact, so you can see that kind of all of the pieces are going to get smooshed together, which is going to create this really cool effect. Because we are putting it with a flower cane, so we don't want a rigid cane shape, because otherwise it doesn't really play off the flower very well, because it just looks too geometric. There we are, and so we're almost reduced enough that I can show you what it is going to look like. Okay, I'm going to bring over a flexible tissue blade so that I can get a nice sharp image. Okay, and I'm just going to slice. Sorry if my head's getting in there. There we are. We just need to get rid of all of that distortion. There we are. So you can see that we're starting to see what it looks like. So I'm just going to put those aside. I wish that I could show you that, but it's quite translucent. Okay, so that's the one side. I'm going to slice the other side. And there we are. So you can see that it's quite a cool cane. So now I think I'm going to leave it at this size actually, because it leaves these pieces quite nice and big, and it means that we can see that it's translucent, because we don't want to reduce it so much that these translucent layers get squished too much. So I'll put that off to the side with our other flower canes. We can reduce it a little bit later if we want to. Now we're going to bring over this. And what we want to do is we want to flatten each piece just a bit and then pinch one end. And I'll do that with the black pieces because I don't have enough white pieces to do that with. So I only want to do it with the blacks. Okay. And you want to flatten them out quite a bit because we want to be putting them together to create petal. And we'll do that with all of these, and I'll show you what it looks like once I've placed all of these pieces on top of each other. So you'll just continue placing them on top of each other so that they start to form something like that. And you can flatten it a bit if you want to. Again, don't worry about being too exact. You don't have to worry about that. I tried to make cane projects where if you accidentally make a mistake, it still looks really nice. Okay, so I'll continue doing that with the other pieces. Okay, so we have finished up putting those pieces together. So I'm just going to squish it all down, and we're going to start forming it into a triangle. And this is going to push all of those pieces together. Just like that. And then we're going to start reducing it. And I want to create a flower cane with this. Just chop off this section so I can show you what it looks like. So you can see it looks quite cool. And if you listen closely in the background, you can hear the cat snoring. So I want to reduce this down until I can get a flower with about 6 petals, because that's going to look quite nice as a flower. And then the center can be done using these white ones that are left, which gives another reason to make this cane fairly large when you do it, because you don't have to just make the cane that I showed at first. You can make any cane you want with it. These round kind of bullseye cane-like canes are very versatile. So I'll just continue reducing this down until I've got a piece that can be cut into 6, and then I can show you how to assemble our flower, and then we can actually get onto assembling our piece. So once you've reduced it down, bring over your white pieces, and you want to reduce those down as well. And we're going to make something like a lace cane. Just reduce those down and just chop off these ends that get distorted. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut it into sections. So I'll be able to cut that one into 2 and that one into 3. And then we can pop those all together. Okay, and then just squish that together into a round to make the center of our flower cane. And I'm going to reduce that down, and we only need a tiny amount of clay to make the center actually. Okay, now just cut off these ends. You can see it's created a little center, and then you can pop that off to the side. Now we want to move back onto this, and what you want to do first, you want to start by rounding off this top section over here. So you want to round off this section by pressing in the corners, and I do that by laying it on my tile and just pressing on that corner, and this will round it out for us. And you want to take some time to make sure that you round out these petals properly. What you can do is you can get it into the basic shape that you want, and then later, once you've cut out the petals, you can do some refinement, because it's much easier to do that. And we're going to cut that in half. Then I'm going to cut it into 3 pieces. A little bit of distortion on that end. Okay, and we've got 3, and we've got 6 petals. Okay, and so I'm pretty happy with how they're all rounded. Just go and check all of them to make sure you're happy before you start assembling. Okay, then we'll bring this over, and this actually needs to be reduced down a bit more for it to fit. So I'm just going to cut off a segment and we'll reduce that down. As I said, you only need a tiny amount of clay. And all these scraps that I'm cutting off you can use, so don't throw them away. Okay. And then we'll pop that there. And actually, before we pop that in, I think we'll assemble half of our cane first, like that, and then I like to lay it on my tile to kind of flatten it out, like that. And that can sometimes make putting the middle in a bit easier. Okay. Then I'm just going to bring over a skewer and I'm going to use it to just gently mark out a spot for our segment to go. Because you could do a flower without a segment. Okay, there we go, we've got a bit of a spot for it there. Just roll that out, pop that into its spot. And then close those petals around it. And then I'm not going to fill this in, because I want each of these petals to kind of mold into each other. So now I'm going to reduce it down to a size that I want, because this is going to be the cane that we use between the Frangipani cane and the translucent mod cane, I guess is what we'll call it, which is the previous one that we made. There we are. I'll bring this over and see what it looks like. So you can see that each of these little segments over here actually looks like a flower, or excuse me, a petal, which is what we want. So it creates a really nice detailed look. Okay, we're just going to reduce that down a little bit more. Okay, and then what you can do is just chop off this end piece, and you want to let all of these canes rest. I just want to mention that quickly. But you'll chop off your cane piece like that, and it would lay onto your sheet, which I'll show you in a minute. But you can also just gently dent these ends to kind of give it a little bit more shape before you lay it onto the sheet that I'm going to be showing you in a second, so that it gives it the look that it does have some defined segments. There we go. But it means that it will be more random, which is nice. So I'll put that off to the side and take that out of the way. And so now we have all of our canes. And I think I do want to reduce this down just a little bit more. So I'll do that, and then when we come back I can show you how to start assembling our piece.